Hi, my name is Dr. Rayshawn Ray, aiming to speak truth to power, and this is my daily thought. Here are my top 5 reasons for why I'm not giving Trump a chance. I keep hearing from people, give him a chance. It's his first day. It's his first 2 days. Give him a chance. Let's see what he's going to do. I've seen what he's done. I've seen what he's done in the past, and I see what he's done in the first 48 hours. So here are my top 5 reasons for why I'm not on board with Trump in any way, why I'm not giving him a chance in any way to better the lives of the communities that I care about, which pretty much includes everyone, whether that be marginalized groups, people of color, poor people, people who live in these towns who voted for him. He's not invested in us, and these are the 5 reasons why Make America Great Again doesn't include people like me in the communities that I care about. First, his campaign comments. We went over that so many times and so many people overlooked that. But for me, having kids, how do you explain to kids? How do I explain to my kids? Someone who mocked a disabled person. Someone who's made comments about sexually assaulting women. Someone who's made comments about a judge who just happens to be Mexican. How do I explain the continuous birther comments about President Obama? How do we explain that to kids in an era where they're coming up trying to make sense of what's going on? So that's the first thing. All of his comments he made on the campaign trail should be enough, but let's move on to 2. Second, his cabinet picks. I'm just going to cover a few of them, maybe 4. First, Rick Perry. Rick Perry didn't even want the EPA, which is the Environmental Protection Agency, right? I don't even think he really knew what it was. And so what's interesting in that regard is when people doubt climate change, which is essentially what happens, all you have to simply do is look at the average yearly temperature for the past 50 years or so. You'll see what climate change looks like. In short, climate change looks like 70 degrees in Maryland and Pennsylvania in the middle of January. It looks like 20 degrees in southern Texas in November or February. And that's climate change. That's global warming. But let's move on. The next thing, the person he picked to be education secretary. It's so much I could say, but I'll just say this. When asked, is she okay with guns being in schools? Now, mind you, we've had all of these issues around mass shootings in schools. Her response was, well, somewhere, and I believe she mentioned Wyoming, but I'm unsure of the exact state. But what I do remember, the statement she made was, well, somewhere there are some grizzly bears trying to get into a school. What the? Is somebody pranking me? I looked around my house. I was like, this can't be real. This is the person who is going to be responsible for education in America. That's what we're talking about right here. Third, we can talk about Jeff Sessions. I've said so much about him being Attorney General, how he's going to roll back the clock. We're going to see more law and order, more stop and frisk. He's made racist comments. In short, he couldn't get through a Republican-led Congress in the 1980s led by Ronald Reagan. That's how racist this man is. And here we are turning back the clock over 30 years, over 35 years later, allowing him to be Attorney General. This is what Make America Great Again means. And then lastly, as it relates to his cabinet picks, because I could keep going, but I'm just going to do one more, and that's Dr. Ben Carson. See, the thing that people don't realize, you can be great at one thing and horrible at something else. That's what we call specialization. If you need to have brain surgery or heart surgery, you potentially go to Ben Carson and his team. If you're trying to do something about HUD, housing and urban development, what does this dude know about housing and urban development? Nothing. And then he comes out and then Trump invites these people to go meet with him, to go meet with Trump and maybe talk to Ben Carson or something. And if we think about the people who were highlighted, because there were more people. There were more people than what the media was highlighting. But if we just focus on a few, what becomes evident is that we're talking about athletes, rappers, and entertainers. This is the third thing. Trump, like many people, reduced black people down to being athletes, rappers, and entertainers, or the exceptions like Ben Carson. But you can't be a super magical Negro, well put together and morally responsible like Obama, then you just hate it on, right? And so here goes Trump meeting with Jim Brown, Ray Lewis, right? They're football players, retired football players, by the way. Kanye West, who's a rapper, Steve Harvey, who's a comedian and entertainer. See, this is what they think we do. All they think we can do is run the ball or get on stage and shuck and jive and act like coons like Jerry Rice is doing in these recent Popeyes commercials selling chicken. Come on, man, get out of here. Where are the policy people? Where are scholars who know about these particular topics, who can address these particular issues? Because, see, this is the thing. All black people aren't in the hood. So by framing black issues around HUD suggests that that's what people think about black people. And that's just irresponsible. Fourth thing, Trump's policies in the first 48 hours have told us clearly, again, if his comments didn't tell us, if his cabinet picks didn't tell us, what he's done over the first 48 hours, so actually 72 hours at this point, have definitely told us. Day one, on his website, immediately after he got inaugurated, he removed climate change. He removed LGBT, which is lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered issues, and civil rights from the White House website and archived them. Second, well, first, let me say this. Second thing he did was him and Ben Carson decided to remove the FHA tax decrease that President Obama put in place before he left. Let me explain this to you. A lot of people have FHA home loans. In many respects, this could also impact military veterans and soldiers from getting homes. A lot of times the homes are in different pools, but it's coming from a similar set of money from the federal government. What happens is people apply for the Federal Housing Administration, FHA, to get home loans. Typically, these loans are for people who either have worse credit on average or who don't have the 20% to put down. But let me be clear. People who get FHA loans, it's more so related to the amount of money they can put down, because people who get FHA loans, their average credit scores are close to 700. So, I mean, we're not talking about people whose credit scores are 400 and 500. You're not getting a home in America, right? I mean, we're talking about people who have good credit, actually slightly higher than average, but who can't afford to put 20% down on a home. So if you live in a place where houses are $400,000, I mean, it's $80,000 you put in home in addition to closing costs, in addition to a whole bunch of other stuff. That's 100 G's. Tell me you got 100 G's sitting in the bank. If you don't, then you're going to get an FHA loan. Okay, so we cleared it up. But the tax, essentially what they did was what Trump and Carson have done. They essentially are making it where homeowners are spending more money on their home. If you're in California, the average home is $600,000, a little over $600,000. That's $1,500, $2,000 a year. If you're in Tennessee, it might be $500 to $1,000 a year. And if you're in Maryland, you're paying anywhere around $1,500 extra a year because of this tax increase that Trump and Ben Carson did day two. So, oh yeah, they looking out for working class people. Oh yeah, they looking out for homeowners. Oh yeah, they looking out for people in small towns. Oh yeah, they looking out for people in urban areas. Bull crap. And that's an example why. Next thing they did was they're actually continuing the Republican and really the Tea Party tirade to dismantle the Voting Rights Act. See, we're focusing on the ACA, and we should, because that was something that I could have mentioned, but we knew that was coming. There are these other things behind the scenes that people aren't paying attention to. The Voting Rights Act is being dismantled. And this is the thing. Why am I so aggravated, frustrated, and aggrieved by this? This is why. Because civil rights, like the LGBTQ issues that were on the White House website, are the links that marginalized communities have to America. If it was not for the Civil Rights Act, If it was not for the Voting Rights Act, both of which happened in 1964 and 1965, was started by Kennedy but ended up being put in place by President Johnson, obviously pushed by MLK and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and SNCC and Black Panthers and all these other groups that were trying to push freedom riders, who were trying to push for civil rights in the 50s and 60s. If it was not for those two acts, Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act, me sitting right here in my office doing this video would not be possible. So when I hear Make America Great Again and those particular acts are being dismantled or those particular issues are being removed, you are removing me from America. You are removing me from the ability to have equality in America. Because this thing people don't get, these acts didn't allow people to get more than their fair share. These acts simply allowed for the playing field to be close to being leveled. Close to being leveled. Still not, but close to being leveled. I think we forget 50, 60 years ago, black people couldn't vote. And now all of a sudden we are seeing this being turned back. And this is a broader issue. If you look at Trump's cabinet picks, what he's essentially trying to do is dismantle government, just like he's trying to dismantle the free press. Not only can he then control the free press, he can also then say, this is why we need to privatize education. This is why we need to privatize healthcare. This is why we need to privatize housing more. This is why we need to privatize the environment. And you do that, all of the ways that equality is maintained in America will cease to exist. And people think that this is going to help you out. Maybe initially, first few years. But eventually, if they come for me, they're going to come for you. So this leads me to my fifth point. The lies about the crowds. Why are we even talking about this? Why is this even relevant? It's not even questionable. I mean, whether or not there were more people at Obama's at inaugurations compared to Trump's. It's not even comparable. I mean, it's just not. There were more people at President Obama's inaugurations, all the way back to the Lincoln Memorial, which is why they showed the view from the Washington Monument. If you've never been to Washington, D.C. and looked, the pictures that you are seeing are from the Washington Monument, which spans the entire National Mall up to the Capitol building where the presidents actually take the oath. Of course, there are tons of people up there. Most people have tickets. Most people are politicians and their families. We're talking about behind the water. Look at the pictures. Behind the water is where the general public stands. This becomes one of the key differences. So not only did they lie about how many people attended the inauguration, with Spicer coming out, who is Trump's press secretary, saying that there were more people at Trump's inauguration than Obama's. And then Trump saying that there were over 1 million people there. There were over 1 million people at President Obama's 2009 inauguration. They were all the way back to the Lincoln Memorial. There were even some people at the MLK Monument. For anybody that's been in Washington, D.C., from the Capitol building to the Lincoln Memorial, that is a very, very long walk. It's like 1.5 miles. So all that white you see, that white has been down before. Man, people are lying. Stop it. But this is one of the things my grandma told me. If you lie about small things that we call white lies, if you make white lies, then lying about larger things become easier. Lying about the national deficit, lying about the free press, lying about wars, lying about the relationship with Russia, lying about the hacks, lying about sexual assault. These things become easier to do. And so I want to end on this note. What we also saw the day after the inauguration was a women's march. It was supposed to be in D.C. I believe it ended up being in something like, it was over in hundreds of cities across America. And I heard Fox News commentators say these are mostly in cities which are, more normally Democratic, liberal, progressive areas. You know what? There were so many marches happening. There were so many people coming from small towns, from large cities, in places where Democrats and Republicans were, all across the board. Protesting for women's rights, protesting for civil rights, protesting for an intersectional perspective that not only includes just women, and we think about that in a singular fashion, but also women of color, also people who are part of the LGBTQ community, also people who want women to have the ability to think about their own bodies and make decisions about their own bodies. We saw millions of people come out. Way more people came out for the Women's March than the inauguration. I live right outside of DC. I know, believe me. Don't let these people lie to you about this. And I want to end on this note.